A lot of you have asked me to talk about this NCAA situation with Tennessee and Virginia. We've covered that a little bit on our national channel, College Football Addiction, which you should certainly go check out. And I'll link at the end of this video. You can see some videos on that and some of our thoughts on what's going on with the NCAA. But we wanted to talk about it here as well. Florida State accepted some NCAA penalties, and it's my opinion that they should certainly look to get out of those now that the NCAA is completely powerless. And now that they have no authority, should the Noles hold up their end of the bargain with the penalties they have? Richie and I talk about that on this video. We haven't talked about this, but the NCAA is in some trouble right now, and you know, maybe some hot water is maybe the best way to say it, where I don't really know the direction that this entire sport is going to go. My friend Allie, who we had on, here UF Week, had Andy Staples on, and she was chatting with him a little bit about it. I actually spoke with Sports Talk Jay. I don't know if any of you guys catch him here on YouTube or not, but I really like him as well. It feels like the entire NCAA is in flux right now, and it's hard to figure out kind of what's going on. And again, we haven't chatted about this on this channel yet, and you and I haven't chatted about it, but and I'll bring this back to Florida State here in a minute, because Alex Atkins and the Florida State program accepted some penalties, but 30,000 foot overview. The NCAA was pursuing some penalties against Tennessee. Tennessee was under investigation, and the state of North Carolina and the state of Tennessee sued the NCAA, basically saying you can't keep college athletes from making money, and they got an immediate injunction basically saying that in all 50 states, the NCAA cannot enforce NIL violations, NIL-related violations, which is great news for Tennessee. And the judge has pretty much in that case said, you're not going to win NCAA. So it'll be interesting to see if the NCAA drops it, how it ends up finishing up, where it ends up going. But no matter what happens, I don't think the NCAA is going to be able to enforce NIL-type penalties, which is maybe great news for schools like Tennessee, Florida, Miami, who were currently under investigation from the Rashada, the Nico stuff there at Tennessee, and other places. Who that isn't great for is Florida State, who just agreed to some penalties, scholarship reductions, Alex Atkins being suspended for 3 games, his 2-year show cause, scouting days and stuff like that. We kind of mentioned those aren't a huge deal. But Richie, we haven't talked about the NCAA here, and just what do you think ends up happening before we get into the FSU stuff? What do you think ends up happening with college football here?
I truly think so. The NCAA is basically powerless, right? I was surprised Florida State, complied with over a ticky-tack rule of giving a guy a ride in a car. Like, that's silly to me. The NCAA makes their money in the NCAA basketball tournament. That's what funds basically the entire NCAA. The revenue they make off that tournament. I truly think we're 5-ish years away from college football not being a part of the NCAA anymore. I just think it's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, doing their own thing, so to speak. They already are, but they're going to be more so NFL farm league. And that's just the direction we're heading in, I think, because the NCAA, there's not a case that a Supreme Court, I don't care, 9 judges, I don't care what side leaning the court is, they're not siding with the NCAA. Whether it's a conservative or a liberal court, they are going to side with the athletes, as they should, in my opinion. I do think college football is going to break away from the NCAA. The NCAA will stay around and keep basketball because that's what funds all of these other sports. And if basketball broke away, that would suck, because then a lot of your Olympic sports would probably go away. So you hope they keep basketball. But in my opinion, college football and the NCAA will not be married, so to speak, 5 years from now.
What would be interesting, and you've seen the you've seen the Big Ten and the SEC kind of form this advisory committee. You've seen other things, other mechanisms start to be set in place. Richie, you remember when COVID happened? Like, the NCAA couldn't give any guidelines on that. The conferences were who held all the power and figured out, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to have sports this fall. big shout out to Christine Brennan, who talked about that being one of the darkest days in Big Ten history when they decided to play football. Never mind the Michigan State, the Penn State stuff that ended up coming out as well. But Florida State was in a unique situation, right? Where they got hit with some penalties and the penalties weren't a massive deal. I don't think, as much as I'd like Atkins to be there, like, I don't think it's a huge deal that he misses that game. I mean, shoot, Michigan just won half their schedule without their head coach. Yeah. So, whatever. I think we'll be fine, especially with Norvell being an offensive guy and being able to call plays and stuff. So, but Florida State obviously had their own battle going on, right? And had a pretty big battle with the ACC that was happening. And so I kind of understand why they just settled quickly with the NCAA. Maybe didn't realize that Tennessee was, shout out to Tennessee. Haven't won anything in 20 years, but certainly stood up or 25 years, I guess now, certainly stood up and is going to be the cause that the NCAA ends up crumbling completely. Yeah. Maybe Florida State just didn't feel like they needed to fight very hard here because they were fighting such a big battle with the ACC too, like kind of, pick your battles or whatever. But I am very curious, Richie, if Florida State tries to push back on some of these penalties. Florida State accepted the penalties, so I really don't know how that would work. Yeah. But if they just say, like, nah, dog, we're not doing this. We're not, like, Alex Atkins is going to be in those first 3 games. We don't have a scholarship reduction. We rescind it. We're going to give out that many scholarships. And what are you going to do about it, NCAA? Like, what are you going to do? Alex Atkins is going to be on the sideline for those first 3 games. We're taking him to Dublin. He'll be in Doak on Labor Day night, and then whatever the next one is, Cal, right? He'll be there. He's coaching all 3 of them. What are you going to do about it? Because they can't, can they then put penalties on you for going back on your word? Can they, it would still be NIL related. So they can't. So I would do it. I just say, no, we're not playing that game. Screw you. You are powerless. You can't. I don't know. So many of you ask for ways you can support, ways that you can get more info, ways that you can just be a little bit more in tune with what we have going on here at Double Fries No Slaw. You can go to patreon.com/DFNS, Double Fries No Slaw, and sign up to be a Patreon member. You can do that anywhere from $3 a month all the way up to some larger memberships where you can get more access. But if you're looking for a little bit more, or you just want to support what we have going on with recruiting season about to pick up, with all the news that drops weekly on the ACC and FSU battle and saga that's going on, you can get all of that at Double Fries No Slaw's Patreon. That's patreon.com/DFNS. Go check it out today and make sure that you're supporting there.
We all have our very strong feelings towards the College Football Playoff Committee. But guess what? The NCAA has no power over the College Football Playoff Committee. So Florida State is one of the top 12 teams. Even say Florida State goes 10-2, right? Then they don't make it to Charlotte. It's just a crazy year in the ACC. They're going to be one of the top 12 teams. And even if Florida State say they earned a bid to Charlotte and the NCAA says, no, Florida State can't go because Coach Atkins said that. Well, the College Football Playoff can still say, cool, I'm going to bring Florida State in anyway because they're going to bring eyeballs. They're going to bring dollars. They're going to bring everything that we want. So the NCAA, I truly think in all sports, yeah, there's a place for the NCAA. In football, I think 5 years max. I really think that's it. And it might not even be that long. This is just pure speculation on my part, but that's where I kind of see things right now.
My counter argument to myself is essentially, I think athletic departments and programs are pretty risk averse. They try not to rock the boat in a major way. Like, I'm just some idiot on a YouTube show, right? On a podcast with a big Twitter. Like, I'm just some idiot, right? Like, what I say doesn't really have any impact on what happens at the university or not. And so I think athletic programs, athletic departments are pretty, they're not as fiery as maybe, your average fan on Twitter, but maybe there's a way that the NCAA can kind of come back and say, like, no, we don't have any power in this area, but if you guys go back on what you said you would do, we will try to push some of our power and some of our weight around. And is that the smartest thing for Florida State, who is going through a pretty massive fight right now with the ACC? I don't know. I think I would at least be exploring those waters, though. I think I would at least be exploring like, hey, man, y'all got no power at all. You've had to basically cancel. Like, they have text messages of Jaden Rashada stuff, like with Billy Napier involved in everything. Like, they are implicated to the nines there. And they're going to, like, Florida's going to walk. Like, Florida's going to get away with it. Miami's going to walk. Like, they have the contract. The NCAA has the contract from the Rashada family. They were looking to take everybody down. And so if they're going to walk on that and Alex Atkins still has to sit out the first 3 games, we still lose scholarships because we agreed to a penalty right before they became powerless. I don't know. I feel like I'd be trying to fight back if I'm Florida State there. And is it worth like going off the deep end with? Probably not. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. NIL, in the day and age of NIL, scholarships don't even matter anymore. But if I'm Florida State, I'm probably trying to fight back a little bit on that. We'll see what happens.